what a will does. What does is a will really necessary, and what does it do?
Well, the thing with the will, and when I was talking a little bit about the misconceptions about estate planning,
Mm-hmm.
if what a lot of my clients think is that if they have a will, it's going to keep them out of the probate process. So in my initial consultation, we start talking, they'll say, well, I'm all set, I do have this will. And one of the biggest misconceptions, and I have to explain to them, is that they're going to end up in probate with that will.
So, Marilyn, what are some of the misconceptions about estate planning?
One of the biggest misconceptions is that if you have a will drafted, you're not going to end up in the probate courts. So a lot of my clients, when they come to see me, they'll bring their old documents and say, well, I was all set, I did this will, I'm not going to end up down at the Daly Center probating. And what I have to explain to them is the will's a great document, and it's really helpful to the probate judge because it tells the judge where you want your property to go, but you still will be in the court system for a good year and a half to transfer your property. So that's probably one of the biggest misconceptions. The next biggest misconception is that it has to do with the value of your property. Most of my clients will say, well, I don't really have a lot. I have a house, it's worth maybe $80,000, $100,000. I got a little 401k, life insurance. That's not going to cost a lot of money to transfer to my family. But the reality is it doesn't matter the number of zeros at the end of your property value. It's the type of property you have. So an $80,000 piece of real estate may take as long as an $800,000 piece of real estate to go through that probate process.
Really?
Yes.
Why?
Because probate law is by statute, and it goes by the type of the property. So if you have a particular type of property that has to go through probate, it still is going to have to go through all the same formalities of opening up the estate, doing an inventory, publishing notice with creditors, going back to the court system. I mean, the court system's monitoring the transfer of this. So that time process isn't going to matter. The value of it isn't going to change the time that you put into it. So it's still going to take a lot. And there's still opportunity for family members fighting because you're going through the court system.
Okay. Is there also a misconception about avoiding probate?
Well, there are some misconceptions about that. Like I said, the main one is that if you have this will, you're going to avoid it. And some people will also just assume that, if the asset is small, that they're not going to end up in court. That's why I always do advise to do the living trust, no matter what the value of your property is, because it'll pretty much guarantee you won't end up in the probate court system as long as it's drafted properly.
Okay, so is a living trust, is that like a living will?
And that's a really good question. That's another one of the huge misconceptions about doing your estate planning is these two documents. People interchange the terms all the time. The living trust is sort of like what I call like a super will. It reads just like a will. It has the same language, but because it's in a trust document, you avoid probate. The living will has to do with how you want any end-of-life measures taken. And that reads kind of more like a DNR, like a do not resuscitate.
Okay.
But I get calls where people need a trust and they'll call it a living will, and I'll call for clients who need a living will and they'll call it a living trust. Okay. But really, if the living will is your intentions, it's a phenomenal document, and I would recommend it.
Okay. What other documents do you need if you're doing estate planning?
Well, the first two we talked about were the living trust and the will. Both those documents have to do with after you have actually passed away. The other documents that you would always want if you're going to do an estate plan correctly is a healthcare power of attorney and a property power of attorney. And those documents deal with when you are alive. The healthcare power of attorney is a phenomenal document, and what it is, it's a document where you name an agent to make healthcare decisions for you if you're not able to make healthcare decisions on your own. And physicians, I think, in my opinion, really like this document because they can go to your family member or your friend and just say, what do you think that person would have wanted, and they can feel comfortable going forward with doing what they need to do without having the liability that if you come to terms and wake up that you're going to be upset with what they did as far as the medical care. So that's a very, very popular document. The other one is a property power of attorney, and how that document works is that you name an agent to handle all your finances, because obviously if you're in a condition where you can't do any healthcare decision making, then you probably can't file your taxes or pay your mortgage and things of that nature.
How often do you run into problems with a living will?
Do you mean the document
Yeah.
where more like the do not resuscitate document? Well, I personally don't run into them. I mean, I draft the appropriate document, but there's a lot of, and maybe what you're alluding to, there's a lot of different, articles that get in the paper about people who maybe have had an issue. A lot of times those are situations that are usually really extreme. But the document's considered a very strong document and recognized throughout Illinois and in other states. So, and it's been, since I started practicing, it's been in existence for 20 years. In my opinion, the healthcare power of attorney seems to me to be the more popular document right now because it's a little broader versus the living will is just a statement of intention. So it's a little more specific.
Okay. And so what are the trends now?
Well, probably the biggest trend right now is the movement to do the living trust rather than just doing the will. I get phone calls every single day, and it's usually from clients who are the baby boomers dealing with their aging parents. They know about the living trust. They're feeling the movement, in my opinion. I mean, today people are very savvy. They go on the internet, they do their research, and they know that what they don't want to deal with. They don't want to deal with probate. So that's probably the biggest trend right now that we're dealing with. The other trend is to do something more comprehensive. The whole idea of just coming in and getting a will done is just kind of obsolete because you really do need all these other documents to support it.
Okay. The property power of attorney, is that mainstream?
Yes, yes. I would say right now any good estate planning attorney would do a property power of attorney. So if I have a client who comes in and they haven't had it done, I question why it wouldn't be done. Because if you need the healthcare power of attorney, you're going to automatically need the property power of attorney with it. And the problem is if you don't have it and you need it, you will then have to have your family member go to court and get guardianship to manage their finances. And I'm doing that right now for a number of clients where they couldn't convince their parents to maybe get this done or they didn't want to get it done. And one of my clients right now, their father had a stroke, can't make decisions on his own, so we're going to get guardianship through the court system, but now the courts will be managing all the finances. So there's a lot more work and a lot more headaches with it.
Okay. Now, have you ever had a client like, I'm sure you've heard of the story in the media about Anna Nicole Smith and the older guy, and he had health issues and then he passed.
Okay.
Have you ever had any clients like that?
Oh, you mean where they gave everything at the last minute to somebody? No, I haven't had that. That would be pretty dramatic. That would be interesting, though.
I can imagine.
Yeah. No, they're saying it's going to be the largest transfer of wealth in the history of our country in the next 20 or 30 years, because they were calling it one of the last generations that has that much wealth. So you will be seeing, I think, a lot more cases like that.
Okay. What would you say to someone who's watching the show and they might be thinking that they need some kind of power of attorney or some kind of instrument in the case that when they leave here and they don't want the family fighting over whatever it is that they have?
I mean, I would say definitely come in, see an attorney, call, and at least get that initial consultation going, because I think that it's sometimes can be an uncomfortable discussion, so it keeps people from making the phone call. But I think if you just make that phone call, sit down, go over everything, you start the momentum going. And I would definitely just recommend, doing the trust with the powers of attorney and not trying to piecemeal it. Get it all done, put it away, and enjoy yourself.
Okay. How important is it for single parents? There's a lot of single parents.
I would say probably over 50% of my practice is single. A lot of single women, and they're going to immediately have a probate problem because they own their real estate in their name alone. So we're always doing that living trust. The other thing that they're very, very concerned about is establishing a children's trust to manage their money to the benefit of the children. And especially if they are divorced, there's always a concern of having the ex-spouse get the money and maybe having it not used for the benefit of the children. So we're setting up trusts to have it, to make sure that the money is secure for the children. So it's probably, I would call it very critical.
How long does this whole process take?
It doesn't take that long. I mean, it can take as long as you want it, truthfully. I have clients, a lot of them want to do it when they're going out of town. So they call me on a Monday and they want it on a Friday, and we can do that.
It can be done that quickly?
Yes, it can be done that quickly. It's getting the information, drafting, and then doing a signing. It's two appointments. And
this is what we all want to know, of course. Is it very expensive?
It depends on the size of your assets and the type of assets you have and the situation that you're in. It's hard to give like an exact price range, because sometimes people come in and they have children with special needs, or if they're trying to secure assets for asset protection. the level of how much real estate they have, that would all get factored in.
So we know the benefits would be to protect your assets. Are there any drawbacks or catch-22s with a living will, or?
Not that I know of. I mean, I can't think of any. I mean, the main thing is to get it drafted correctly, because if you don't do it correctly, then you're going to be back in court anyways.
Okay.
I have clients who will try to draft it on their own, and I haven't seen one do it where it's actually going to be upheld. So there's always missing a piece of information in it, or a notary, or the funding of the trust. There's always something missing that's going to keep it from actually being upheld.
Okay, now you said something missing. So money is tight. And how do you convince someone that they really need this, and why they need it if they don't have a lot of money?
Yeah,
So the average person, see if they were making $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 a year.
Exactly. I mean, I guess it just depends on what your goals are. You know, I mean, if your goal is to avoid having your property go into probate, if you want to make sure that you get the person named that you want for guardian and trustee of your kids, if you want to make sure that you you have an agent if you go into hospital for surgery, if those are your goals, people will be willing to go forward with the process. I think it's just mainly a priority of what you're trying to accomplish.
Okay.
And there right now, I haven't really had an issue with convincing people. Like, I don't really try to convince them. There's usually something that moves them to come in. Something's happened in their family, and they saw what happened. So.
Okay, powerful. That's good information. If you just joined in, Marilyn Rowley from Rowley Law, and if you'd like to contact her, just call us here at the Higher Learning Network, and we gladly share her information. I want to thank you so very much.
Thank you, Zelda. I
Any
appreciate
closing thoughts for our viewers who
Yes.
may be thinking about it? Just look at the camera.
I would say don't be afraid to make the phone call. The initial consultation is very painless, and the process then gets moving, and you'll get it done. And it's probably been on your mind for at least 10 years, so it's a good idea to get going.
Wow, at least 2 years.
Yeah.
Wow, okay. Well, thank you so very much for sharing that information with our viewing audience. I hope you've enjoyed the show. Tell someone that you know who may be interested in using the services of Marilyn Rowley from, am I saying this right? RowleyLaw.net.
Yes.
So thank you very much. Thank you for watching. Stay on purpose, stay empowered, and stay tuned for more of Higher Learning. See you next time. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I
enjoyed
appreciate
it.
you.
It's fun to meet you. Very fun.
Thank you.